Welcome everyone. Today we're going to discuss about the poverty reductions, and for doing this session I want to give a special thanks to World Bank because of their content, because they do a fantastic research on poverty reductions. And poverty reduction is ultimately the important things of the ecosystems and important aspects of the ecosystem, especially in the COVID period. We have to understand why poverty reductions is very important in terms of economic developments. For this outline today, we measure poverty and social exclusion. We develop in poverty measurements and methodological challenge, problem in collecting data with regularity, practical aspect of organizing monitoring at the national and local level, practical aspect of organizing monitoring at the local level. Why measure poverty and social exclusions? The new aid architectures and country-based development models. Number one goes beyond the purely economic model of poverty. We have to go beyond the economic model of poverty. We need to address the relationship between structure, institutional, human, and macroeconomic aspects of development. Beside that, we have to emphasize the links between objective and the action needed to reach them, and the importance of clear, monitorables indicators of progress. If we can understand the real progress, if we can understand the real relationships of the poverty and society, then we can take necessary initiative. The country-based development model. The country-based development model, we need to understand the nature of poverty. We need to understand chosen poverty reduction objective. We have to understand defining strategy for poverty reductions and growth including macro and articulars policy, governments structure policy and programs, realistics coachings and funding. This help us to implementations to program and policies. When we have a better program and policy, that time we can do the monitoring outcomes and evaluate them impact. So if we can do the actions and participatory process including central government agencies and inter ministerial groups, we can go for the parliaments and other representative structures. We can go for the public, including the poor, civil society, external partner. So this is the architecture to improve aid effectiveness, because aid is very much important in this process. So architecture's aid effectiveness, what does it means? For that particular issues, we have different kind of country and donors. For country and donors, we have consultations, poverty analysis, as well as we can do our sector diagnostics. If we can do the proper consultations, we can do of the poverty analysis, we can do sector diagnosis. That time we can develop the PRSP, and if we can develop the PRSP, that time we can grow a relationship with the link to the budget, as well as we can develop the policy and program. This help us to develop the monitoring. And the donors, we need to support for analysis and consultations, and this PRSP develop a relationship with feedback mechanisms, and this feedback mechanism create assistance strategies, donor program projects including budget support, advisory and analyticals work. So what should be monitors? Share growth and equity of the opportunity required a broader concept of poverty that encompasses non-economic dimensions such as access to opportunities, empowerment, subjective well-beings, health, education, shelters, gender inequality, practice participations and voice. These things give us development in poverty measurements. Despite consensus that poverty is multi-dimensional, the expanded definition is still moving from the periphery to the core. 1980s inclusions of nutrition, education, and health. 1990 human development indicators. Since 2000, we go for the centrality of the well-beings and empowerment. Then we go for CWIQ, annual measure of excess, uses, and satisfactions with service to give an advance warning of future impact. Then we go for the poverty maps, address special correlates of poverty. But measuring non-economic dimensions involve methodological challenges. Indicators should be relevant to policymakers and decision makers, cheap and easy to collect, relevant to interventions, and ambiguous measure for progress. Finding non-economical indicators is more complicated because they may change more slowly than economic indicators, can be more difficult to collect, may require special surveys, are more context specials and less universal, maybe less tangibles and quantifiables, hence perceived as less objective and rigorous. Example of the new approaches poverty map and policy. Overlays used to identify correlated of the poverty. Let's say Sri Lanka, poverty and isolation and accessibility. South Africa, containing a cholera epidemics. Tanzania, changes in poverty and market access. Ecuador's, compare poverty map at top 2 points in time, coordinates programs and improve targetings. Cambodia, WFP Cambodia with maps of nutrition, infrastructure and vulnerability of flooding or droughts to identify potential area for WFP program. Morocco map suggests different mechanism for urban versus rural areas. Vietnam validated target approaches of program 1935s. Mexico progress and opportunities. And South Africa, we can focus that municipal grant amount based on established on poor. This is the health of districts, and this is the districts poverty indicators. So there are many interesting aspects we can identify from the poverty. Tracking the impact of education or poverty and mobility. Poverty and accessibility to education. Important of secondary education for poverty reduction grow in 1990s. Access for poorer households remains low, but education has potential to enlarge opportunity for mobility out of low-paying agricultural sector. This is the tracking the impact of secondary education on productivity and mobility. Uganda has early 1990s. Here is 11, here is 32, late 90s. It is the poorest quantity is 6% and richest quantity 37%. Ghana early 90s, poorer quantity is 17%, richest is 20%. Late 90s, poorest is 90%, richest is 23%. Early 90s, Indonesia 5% is poorest and 42% is richest. Late 90s, 13% poorest and 26% richest. Vietnam's early 90s 5% richest and 47% 5% poorest quantiles and 47% richest quantiles, and the late 90s 9% poor and 29% rich. Tracking inclusion of financial market. So systematic information on household financial assets in developing countries remain sparse. To data tracking relies on combining data from HSS and data on penetrations of financial institutions. Finding financial institutions of the poorer is still challenges. So financial inclusions of the poor is still a challenge. And beside that, we have A selection indicator to monitoring empowerment. Definition focus on choice, participations, control and influence, ownership, voice and means of the overcoming oppressions. Changes to measure because not a unity concept. Intrinsic, instrumental, universal and context specific, individual, collective, subjective, objective, multiply levels and dimensions, not directly observable but must be measured through proxies. Beside that, we need the monitoring the impact of reform on empowerment and social inclusions. Measurement empowerment and social inclusions in Nepal's, we need to track effort of decentralization policy and rural water supply and sanitation project on genders, castles and ethnic relations. We need founded that the greater focus on livelihood intervention was called for to reduce inflations of caste and ethnicity. Impact of evaluations of Honduras community-based educations. We need monitors impact of reform on community empowerment with respect to influencing school management, identified necessary of the long-term government's commitments to reduce power imbalance between elites and indigenous population within the communities. This is most of the important and interesting economical aspects of the society. Beside that, there is a problem in collecting data with regularity. Incompatible administrative data. So if we do not have the real data, this is the problem. Selecting indicator reflect a long social process under representation of invisible populations, difficulty in coordinations, duplications, redundancies, few incentive to participate or relinquish spaces, weak demands from decision makers. Without common purpose, formal and obliged do not work. So there are different aspects of data collections on regularity. If we can collecting data in an effective way, that time we can take the necessary measurements. Practical aspect of organizing monitoring at the national level. We can go the choice of institutional lead criticals, more efficient if a single agency close to central of the government. We can go for the campaign, important but dangerous to tie system to a personality. We can coordination in the greater challenges, process, advocacy, political leadership, critical, etc. We can go for promote monitoring within the within line ministers, change incentives and capacity. We can go for the national statistical agencies and ensure complementary with existing system and plans. If we can go for the increased disseminations, trainings, and statistical literacy, that will help us to grow different kind of things. So in that particular situations, data is very important. If we have a specific data, if we have specific informations, that time we can take necessary initiative. So if we want to involve with the local government, the limit indicates to reduce burden and increase compliances, central quality control mechanisms, support capacity building proven feedbacks. Important that those responsible for correct collecting data understand how they will be used, build on local civil society, encourage local accountability and uh, disseminations. These are the different kind of aspects that we can discuss on that particular point. So poverty has different kind of issues, and as a global citizen, we have to understand that how we can reduce the poverty, how we can understand the poverty. And if we can reduce this kind of poverty related things, and if we can understand different kind of poverties and this aspect, then it will be very efficient and effective. And this is the ultimately the objective of school of talent economy, that how we can reduce the poverty as well as how we can understand the poverty in a difficult way. And at present in the uh, 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 if you focus on the post-COVID poverty lines and these kind of things, um, so there is a one of the specific reports I want to share from World Bank. There and these are the factors that there is a 150 million extreme extreme poor peoples will be produced in the post COVID-19 era. So these times, this is very important factors that we have to understand these things, and we need to understand that how we can take different kind of measures for poverty reductions, how we can take different kind of initiative for poverty reductions. For 2021, poverty reductions ultimately the most challenging part of the society. So for the COVID assess in the menu, 150 million extreme poor by 2020 once. So according to World Bank report, global extreme poverty expected to rise in 2020 for the first time in over 20 years, as derived of the COVID-19 pandemic compound for the process of conflict and climate change, which were already slowing poverty reduction progress, and World Bank said today. So the COVID-19 pandemic is estimated to push an additional 88 million to 115 million people into extreme poverty this year, with the total rising to as many as 150 million by 2021, depending of the severity of the economic constructions. So extreme poverty, defined as living less than $1.9 a day, is likely to affect 9.1% and 9.4% the world population in 2022. According to the Biennial Poverty and Sheer Poverty report, there would be represent of regressions to the rate of 9.2% in 2017. So there are many things happening in the post COVID-19 era. So we need to take a lot of initiative. We need to be very much careful. We need to be very much respectful for our society, and by this way we can manage the poverty related things. So I request everyone, be careful about the pandemic, and especially take good initiative how we can reduce poverty, how we can reduce poverty. This is important. So governments, corporations, non-government NGOs, academia, everybody need to work together, and if they can work together, that time we can save many of our populations. Thank you everyone. So this is ultimately our objective, that how we can solve poverty in a professional way. Thank you everyone. So hopefully by this way we can do a efficient and effective relationship, and which is very much important for us. So thank you everyone for observing today's session, especially Shahrukh, Shumon, Tahrina, and everyone. I want to give a special thanks for your support, and if you have any kind of questions, you can share your questions and I will give you answer. Thank you everyone.